Hey there, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Jamie, and we're your co-hosts for Two Clicks in a Pod.
Join us as we explore our missed times, stories, and memories due to divorce and a 1,000-mile separation.
I can't wait. You ready to get into it, Kev?
I am. Hey, Jamie, you think they're going to swear?
Oh, yeah. Consider yourselves warned.
Hey, welcome back, Clicks. We've got a youngster on the other end of the mic today, and this is Jake, known as J.W. Parrish. He's from East Texas, born and raised, I believe. I'm not sure where he was born, but he's from Mount Vernon. And we're going to dive into his story. I met him as a little kid when it came to a youngster wanting to ride a wakeboard. And that's how we met, out on the lake, and know his mother and his sister and a little bit of his history. But he has spent 14 years actually within gas and oil on the pipeline career. He's an adrenaline junkie, much like myself at that age. He's currently 32 years old, the youngest actual interviewee or the guest on this podcast. So I'm really digging that. And now he's out and just happened to find a love and a passion, as he's always had, of turning wakeboarding hopefully into somewhat more of a full-time gig. He just came off of the WWA tour throughout Texas and took it to nationals, which qualified him for Worlds, and recently just made the trip to Dubai and was in that event, which really was a thrill for me. We gave him a little bit of sponsorship money, to not much enough to get him over to Dubai and help with that, but as a past visitor of Dubai, I know he had to enjoy that. I've been at the marina where they had the actual event, and made the comment to him that when I was there and sitting there on that freaking dock, and just said this would be a great world event for a wakeboarding event. And then he's here in 2025. So we're going to break it all down. He had a great little story that I know a little bit about as a youngster, missing some middle years, and then curious to know about his working in the fields. So we were glad to bring on Mr. J.W. Parrish.
Yes, sir.
To the
welcome.
Two Clicks Pod. So
yeah.
Welcome, Jake.
Well, thank y'all for having me, Kevin, Jamie.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I didn't dive deep into knowing that you're our youngest guest, but I guess that's right. I was sitting here doing like the portfolio in my head, and yeah, that's pretty wild.
I feel
you're making me feel pretty old, but it's great to have as Dad said, a youngster on the show. Welcome.
I really appreciate y'all having me. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You are welcome. You are welcome. So let's get right into it. I mean, obviously you're in a different place today from when we first met, no doubt about it. You have an older sister, Jessica and Kelsey, that were in school together, and you were the youngster kind of behind that time frame. So they're what, 34, 35, 34, I think.
Well, Kelsey's 10 years younger than me. I'm 44, so she'll be 35 in January. So
January.
So you and your sister are 2 years apart then.
Correct. She'll be 35 on December 6th, this weekend, Saturday.
Oh, my daughter's December the 8th. How exciting.
Yeah. So anyway, let's dig into the Mount Vernon story, or better yet, just roots of where you grew up and how you enjoyed your younger life and how you turned on to wakeboarding and what got you in the oil field, and obviously being in Mount Vernon, Texas, and that East Texas area most of your life, for sure.
All right. Well, so I was born in Tyler, Texas, lived in Pittsburgh, Mount Vernon, what I call the Tri-Lakes area. The vast majority of my childhood. Never left it much, didn't have no need to, and with that, there's not a whole lot going on out in East Texas. Everybody is either, hanging out at the lake or playing sports, something along those lines. And at an early age, I really enjoyed, being out on the water, but my dad was very disciplinary in my life, and I spent a lot of my summertime, working the feed store, welding out there on the ranch. My grandfather and my dad, they taught me that at an early age, how to weld. They wanted me to have trades and skills and stuff of that nature, And at the time, I didn't put much, thought into it. And he used to always tell me, he was like, son, one day you're going to be thinking you should have paid us for all this education you're getting, But that's what they were doing, was just embedding skills into me. And anytime I got a chance to leave the ranch and go to the lake, I was definitely jumping on that. But Mount Vernon was just a real small, quaint town. There wasn't a whole lot going on, not a whole lot of action. And as I got older, I started getting kind of this passion for adrenaline rushes, I guess you would say, in some form or fashion. My dad was a big rodeo guy. He was a stock contractor. Bull riding was his thing. Mom was scared to death to let me ride. You know what I mean? I rode a little bit, there in high school and coming up, and I started becoming more passionate towards board sports. I broke my C4 and my C5 in my neck playing football my junior year there at Mount Vernon, and I was in a neck brace for about 16 months. And doctors took me out of all sports, pretty much, besides baseball and soccer. And I was stuck with those. I ran cross country as well, but I needed something to feed that, And that's when I started looking at, skateboarding and snowboarding and wakeboarding and surfing and stuff of that nature. I think Mom put me on a snowboard when I was 5 years old. Was the first time I ever touched snow. And I think the first time I ever got on a wakeboard, I might have been 10 years old, 12 years old, somewhere in that pocket, But I always had that need for adrenaline, But just kind of growing up there in East Texas, like I said, there wasn't a whole lot, so we had to improvise, and that's just kind of what led me into that, And then as I got older, it became harder because, you start turning 16, 17, 18, your parents want you to have a job, stay out of trouble, stuff like that. And I was doing those things. I was working all the time. And I started realizing that I could make a lot more money welding than I could even if I went back to school. I had buddies that were, a little bit older than me. They were going out on the pipeline, and they were rig welding, bringing home phenomenal amounts of money. And, some kind of click there. And I was like, oh, well, maybe that's what route I want to take. So started welding at an early age, came out of high school, worked at a fab shop there for a little bit. And then from that fab shop, I'd, revenued enough money to where I could put together my own welding rig. And kind of just sat tight there, and eventually got a job offer to where I could go take a welding test out in Wheeler, Texas. If y'all know where that's at, it's way out west by the Permian Basin. Went out there, ended up busting on my welding test, and so I hired out as a helper. And they were like, well, what kind of crew you want to be on? And I'm like, well, what do we got there? Well, you can mainline, or you can do live tie-ins. And I'm like, well, what's a live tie-in? They're like, well, basically you're going to be welding on live gas lines. And I'm like, sign me up. What pays more, And so,
yeah.
That was the route I took. And it's funny now, but like back then, my mom wanted to kill me. My family wanted to. They're like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? But I fell in with a good group of guys. They were, for lack of better terms, kind of the OGs of the industry whenever it came to tying into live gas lines. And they groomed me. They taught me. They were patient with me. They were rough as hell. I don't know if I can say that on here, but they were,
please.
They were pretty intense guys, and they polished me, and they made me very efficient at what I was doing, and that really helped me kind of climb the ladders. So once those jobs kind of laid out and we got those spreads finished, everybody starts to kind of bounce up and go to the next one. You live life kind of in a 6-month timesheet, it felt like, and I advanced down south a little bit, down towards Pecos, Texas, if you don't know where that's at, and did a lot of work out there for Willow Creek Pipelines. And at the time, I was wanting to kind of further my education. I kind of got not tired of welding, but I felt like I had a lot of untapped potential upstairs that I needed to capitalize on. So went back to school and started doing some blueprint reading and some drafting classes to where I could read isometric prints, which kind of led me into the position of doing fabrication management and procurement, where I was basically being handed a set of blueprints. I would go through there and do a diagnostic on, how many flanges, how many bolts, nuts, all this stuff. I'd bring it all together, and then I would have the welders fabricated in the yard. And I was responsible kind of for that manufacturing process prior to it going out into the field. I was very efficient.
And so this is all still happening like through oil and gas industry. Like you're still in that. Yeah, you're still there. And then so you're talking when you head out to, you said Wheeler, right? Wheeler, Texas. Did I get it right? You're 18. Are you 18? Are you 20? So you graduate and you just go, or?
I was 18 years old, whenever I graduated. I worked at Pinnacle, which was a fab shop here in Sulphur Springs, for about a year.
Yeah.
Once I kind of saved up enough money to where I could go on the
then
road,
you go. Okay. Okay.
So I was probably 19 whenever I landed boots on the ground out in Hereford and Wheeler, Texas.
Yeah.
Working for Dimension Pipeline. And kind of did that for about a couple years until we got those spreads laid out. So at this time, I'm probably 21, 22 years old.
When you like move on to doing the extra education to learn to like another skill. And I'm just curious. So I want to take one step back. You mentioned like your mom, like, what do you, it's dangerous, right? It's not a safe job, but for your dad and your grandpa that taught you all these skills, I mean, they had to have been very proud of you, right? Like, I mean, that's,
they
yeah.
were. And they knew I was well trained. They knew I
right.
wouldn't go out there and touched it if I didn't know what I was doing. You know what
I
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Like to your, you made the point that they said one day you're going to think like, you should be paid us for this education. And it's interesting because on my husband's side, our nephew he started learning to weld in high school up here in Pennsylvania. So, and he just loved it. And he's literally graduating and has like job offers. And I told him, 2 years ago, I was like, dude, this is amazing. Cause all these kids are going to college or doing this, like, this is the traditional way now, but nobody can get a job. So I was like, go be a welder. Like they make great money. There's not enough of them. And you'll come out of school with a job. And he's done that. And he loves what he does. So that's really cool to hear, again, 12 years ago, you were doing that same path. So that's really cool.
And as well, there were so many guys in that area, being friends with the Jurassies and crew and people running around in Winsboro. I mean, Matt Brown was out in the field. I mean, there was lots of guys out there running around in the field at some point in time. And obviously, and I remember at the time frame in Mount Vernon when I was living in the bus and just seeing welders there in the RV park taking the welding test and having to weld together an 18-inch diameter pipe, right there in the at the campground, just as they were being tested.
Hours practicing in an RV park. Let me tell you, Kevin.
Yeah. I just don't think people realize like what a skill it is and how hard it is to do. So I think it's amazing. Like, I think that's really cool. And I just commend you for taking like what you were forced to learn because it was your family and being like, all right, I'm going to take this and find my own path. So sorry I interrupted, but I needed a little bit of background there. So you mentioned you learned then how to read the drawings, which allows you to, I'm assuming this was kind of like a promotion, so to speak, and that it's another skill you have in that industry.
Yeah, it was a promotion, so to speak. I kind of went in there and talked myself up and landed a job and then had to figure it out after the fact.
Yeah, that's all right.
It got me where I'm at today, so I'm proud of that.
Yeah, for sure. I did the same thing.
Jake, that has in the last many years of recent that I've known you, you definitely know how to talk yourself up. So that's what's gotten you so far, and I'm so impressed with that you have the confidence, the ability, and better yet, the salesmanship that you can sell
yourself
out on the you could sell water on the middle of a lake. I mean, you really could. It's not hard to sell water in the middle of the desert, but to sell water on the middle of the lake, you have that personality. So
it's a good skill to have for sure.
I'm not sure.
This is a compliment.
I'm not sure where that came from, but it just had to be your, like you say, your ability to want out to just drop it and go get it. So congratulations on that. Continue. Sorry.
Keep going.
I knew I wanted better for myself, and I knew that I had to go through certain red tape to achieve that. And I was already working in that direction with my career. At this point, I'm 22, 23 years old. I'm invested. I'm coming out of school. Now that I have a couple, pieces of paper underneath my back pocket, companies were starting to look at me, and so they let me manage procurement, fabrication, and that's kind of where I started to climb my way into upper management in the industry that I'm in today. Now, don't get me wrong, there was a couple busts in the industry where I had to resort back down the ladder and work my way back up through it. But I mean, when you keep your head down and you keep pushing, eventually good things will come out of it if you're involved with the right people.
Yeah.
It wasn't an easy feat. I mean, there was times where I was, sleeping in the back of my truck and going to a truck stop to take a shower because we're waiting 2 weeks for our first paycheck, kind of thing. It hasn't life has not always been this sunshine
Rosy.
and rainbows.
Yeah. Before we leave the welding scenario, I do have a question on certification, because the shops that in the industry that I'm in, and the shops that we do our engineering design for in California and other areas, California in particular, they have to be on a certified welding program approved by the state of California to do any welding, and better yet, welding that's not nearly as critical. It's structural for sure, but it isn't preventing a gas leak or a pipeline scenario, which is to me that's a more imminent, more um, the probability in something like that happening, not to say that it's greater, but the danger in that is tenfold greater than to think that a weld group that's got a quarter of an inch slag on the end of it is going to create an issue with regards to a seismic shift. I mean, and that's exactly what everybody gets tested on, tested over, better yet, red flagged out in the field. Then, certs have to be, we have to stamp on the certifications that, with regards to the weld that we're calling out, whether it's a full penetration, partial penetration, fillet weld. I mean, all of that is required to actually sign off on based upon the skill of the welder. And those are things that we don't get to see. It's just the cert stating what the actual weld needs to be. And then, as you know, the inspector handles that thereafter. So my point here is it's a very highly regulated and certified, as well as peer reviewed profession, to say you're worth a shit or you're not, is my point. Because life safety is very important. And we see that on Landman every week when something explodes, and I can't say that it's ever a fractured weld, but you never know. It's usually a busted valve or a leaky valve. Or we saw it last night. You didn't see this, Jamie, but it's
yeah. Watch it. No spoiler alerts, Dad. No spoiler alerts.
So, Kevin, the standard that you're referring to in the gas industry is API 1104D, which is API 1104 downhill welding, typically done with a high tensile rod, 60-10, 70-10, 80-10,
Yep.
something of that nature, right? And we only have an 1/8 inch of allowance in that standard. So, I made a comment earlier about I've spent many hours practicing in an RV park, and that's what those guys are doing. They're trying to dial down and dial in those machines and get those tolerance zones as minimum as they can. And the procedures that they've come into today are a lot more strict as well, Kevin. We have to do what we call a live scope, or it's basically like a live feed x-ray of those welds.
Yeah.
And if you don't fall within those parameters, they have no problem cutting you. I actually got busted out of my first welding test that I mentioned earlier because I slipped up and told the inspector how old I was. I was sitting there testing, and he came up and he was like, "Hey, man," he's like, "that's a really sharp looking weld." I was like, "Thank you, man. Thank you." I'm sitting there working on it, and I come back around, and he goes, "Man, that's really good. How long you been welding?" And I was like, "Oh, about 6 or 7 years." He's like, "Well, hell, you don't look that old." I said, "No, I'm only 18, but I've been welding since I was 12." He was like, his little eyes got this big around. He went back in there and he threw my coupon in the ditch and told me that he's like, "No, you wait about 2 or 3 years and you can come back and test with me." But,
Did you know what? Is there a minimum age to test?
No, there's not. It's you're talking about a bunch of 60-year-old men that have been living out there on the PB all their life, and they weren't raised that way. They're not built that way. They don't have the respect for a 22-year-old coming in there and trying to put together a pipeline. It don't matter who taught him or how good he is. In their mind, he isn't worthy yet, and that's just it's a maturity thing for them, And I get that now. Now I get it, but then I was pissed.
Well, sure, because like it's amazing that somebody looks at your work, sees your skill, and is complimenting on you, and then you go to find out you're not as old as he thinks. Like that's kind of bullshit. Which tells you, amazingly enough, that like it's not corporate America because you can't discriminate based on age. But yeah,
it's generational. It's generational. Our generation, and we talked about this before we started laying down the tape here, or the recording, or the pod, as you like to call it, James. But
well, it is a pod. It's not a tape. But keep going.
A 60-year, yeah, but we are taping. We're recording.
No, we're recording.
We're going to stamp out CDs here in a minute. So anyway, a 60-year-old man, he's gone through the shitter for 60 years trying to get where he's at. So when a young buck comes in, this is a prejudice that goes on today, and this is what's going on right here in our world right now with our old buddy Al, or AI, is that there are going to be people that know how to utilize that tool to the betterment of themselves. It's not AI that's going to replace them. It's people that know how to use AI that's going to replace them.
Yeah.
So a youngster who just might be the next skill set on a welder and just can grab it and lay down a rod like there's no magic, maybe he may be Angel Gabriel that's actually doing that. Who knows who he is? But anyway, at 32 years old versus 16 years old, somebody's going to be naturally prejudiced against that to say, you haven't paid your dues. You just have not paid your dues.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I'm not going to go out there and let you earn $100,000 as an 18-year-old. That's the way they look at it.
I get that. I was just my point was just that like it's a different world.
For that?
I was grateful for that in hindsight, because the year I turned 23, Kevin, I knocked down 180K, and I had more money than I knew what to do with, and that was the dumbest thing to do to a 23-year-old. And maybe that's not right of me to say. It was me personally, and I'm sitting here telling you, like, I respect that man in hindsight for what he did that day, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah. My point was only to emphasize that it's a different world. Like you can't, in corporate America, you couldn't do that, is all I was trying to get at, is that it just goes to show you what a different world, and that the average person like myself, I'm sorry, like Dad, to put ourselves in your shoes, like I couldn't even imagine living in that environment, let alone working in that environment, which is probably why I doubt there's many women that do. But yeah, I think it's commendable that you rolled in there as a 20-year-old and took a test, that you obviously had the skill to pass. And to your point about, $180,000 in a 23-year-old's pocket, like I get it. We talked about it with my brother, 3 episodes ago, in a similar situation of sending an 18-year-old to college with your parents funding your experience, and you go from living at home to it's no different. Your 180,000 is an 18-year-old at Florida State University with an allowance to go party all day every day. It's the same thing, right? Like you're growing up, you're learning. It's just a different story. But it's interesting, right? That we all get there at some point, which is what we're talking about today, is how you got from that to where you are now.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, Jamie, in the aspect of, that's not corporate America. Now that I live in corporate America, I'm operating and living within corporate America, and out of that kind of background, I feel like really kind of groomed me. It helped and hurt me in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? There was a lot of customs that I had wired in my mind, like, this is the way that things are. You know what I mean? Like, you don't upgrade positions until you've been here 5 years. You don't care. I don't care what your skill set is. And then you go into the corporate America where you have these active placers, well, what do they know? What's their skill sets? And they place you in these different positions. It's two totally different animals. So my life has been nothing but a transition, for lack of
yeah.
So let's fast forward into this out in the field, and 17 years, and again, obviously, you continued developing, continued growing, and then all of a sudden you are rewarded with an opportunity to, as we all are in current day, kind of working remotely at home. And that obviously had to be exciting with regards both to family relationships, um, and just a healthier environment, I would assume, of not having to constantly be on the road. And your shift work, what was the shift work like in that time frame? Were you gone for 2 weeks or gone for three? What was the out and back type of stuff
So
before getting home?
if I could stay on the road, I was staying on the road. But it wasn't as much. I did a lot of rig welding. So basically, where we would go out to oil derricks and weld on those oil derricks. But once I made that transition out of the oil industry into the gas industry, which was kind of a step up, I tried not to resort back into that. But during that duration, it was typical 2 on 2 off hitch. You know what I mean? But I would try to cheat the system as make much money as I could. So I'd work one derrick for 2 weeks, and I'd go jump on another one for 2 weeks and jump back to that one for 2 weeks. And I would try to stay gone from home, I mean, as long as I could, you know what I mean, and revenue as much money as I possibly could while I was there. That's what I was out there to do, you know. But then whenever I made that transition into natural gas, it was kind of like the white collar of the oil industry. You know, everybody was a little bit more lax. Now, regulations, protocols, procedures, stuff of that nature were a little bit more strict, which I respected. You know, they come with the territory. But, you know, transitioning out of the hustle and bustle of a 2 on 2 off hitch
Yeah.
was non-existent. You know, it was more or less we're going 7/12s or we're going to work 5/10s, you know, and you just kind of try to find that happy medium. If it was a 7/12 job, that means we're going to have it laid out in 2 months. And in 2 months, you're going to pull up to the right of way and you're going to have a welding foreman come out there and hand you a pink slip and say, all right, son, it's time for you to go home, you know?
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, you know what I mean? Like you didn't expect it, you know? But they would do a reduction of force, ROF form, this little pink slip they'd hand it to you and say,
Yeah.
it's time to go home, you know? And usually there was 3 or 4 welders or 3 or 4 guys that would get that same ROF at the same time. And we do so much networking while we're out there on the road. I mean, everybody thinks we're just sitting in an RV park drinking beer, but really we're talking about, you know, who's got this line going in? Where's the Keystone going next? You know,
Yeah.
What about the Arbuckle pipeline coming out of Oklahoma? How do we get on that? Everybody's networking. Everybody's talking to each other. Everybody's passing contacts. And so as soon as we get one of those ROFs, you know, everybody's buddying up, you know, well, how many do they need on that spread? How many welders do they need? Where are we going? We're going to Arkansas or we're going to California, you know?
Yeah.
So sorry, my HR mind is like going crazy right now. So are you an independent contractor? Like, is that how you work? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I was a
So that's how they hire you. You're a contractor. And so to your point on the networking, you meet a person and they're like, hey, this Jake Parrish, you hire him. He does good work. And then he'll spread the word through the contracting network. Like, yeah, that guy's a good worker. He's good. And you can get picked up. All right.
You would deal with,
man, doing your taxes must suck when you're doing that.
Especially after this year with all the W-9s and 1040 forms.
Yeah, I hope you hire an accountant, man, because I can't even freaking imagine it. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like the fourth person that's told me that this week.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Your taxes, but yeah.
I have a good friend that's a contractor, and like when tax season comes around, I'm just like, man, don't you just do TurboTax? He's like, yeah, no. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, that's
Jake,
interesting.
I'm going to give you some advice from my accountant because I bet you about taxes every year. And he says, dude, as long as you're paying taxes, you're making money.
That's right. Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You may not like paying them, but it shows that you're being successful and making money.
Yeah. Wow.
But it's a painful time.
Okay. So, all right. So that's interesting. So you guys are like, I'm loving this. This is so interesting to me. So you're out there, you're working, but it's a constant hustle because you're an entrepreneur. You got to find your next job.
Yeah, and it's a
hey. They've all got jacked up pickups. They got $80,000 pickups that have lifts on them about 6 to 8 inches.
Well, what does that have anything to do with it?
Well, the point is The pay is good and life is good, and it gives them exactly what they want and what they need, which is
that is a huge misconception of the industry. We don't have those jacked up trucks for looks. If you've seen the places that these gas cars,
oh, I know why I know, but I mean, you get out of the field, and the first thing you do is you stop at a car wash and get it dialed up.
I just feel sorry for you that you
into town. Yeah.
I feel bad for you that you have to buy an because the fact that it costs $80,000 to buy a pickup truck, I feel bad for you because that's crazy.
It's not just a truck; it's all the equipment that goes on the back of it.
Yeah, you're talking about a truck. You're talking about $20,000 for a machine. You're talking about $15,000 in hand tools. I had to put $500,000 of insurance up just on my right arm, just the weld.
Right.
You know what I
mean? So you're carrying your own insurance as well, then, right?
Medical, and a lot
all of it.
My own helper. You ever watched Happy Gilmore where he just like picks somebody?
Oh yeah.
You're caddy. That's what I was picking helpers out in West Texas. Go to McDonald's and find somebody that's pissed off and just have them jump in the truck with you. And you go,
holy shit!
Hey.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Everybody needs a little helper.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
In all seriousness, though, that life out there in West Texas and up in Oklahoma and laying pipe, it sounds like fame and glory and a lot of money and souped up trucks and pretty girls and stuff, but it's not. I'm telling you, the stuff that they put us through, the places we'd have to go, the experiences that I had while I was there. I've lost buddies on the right of way. I've seen bad stuff happen. It's not. It can get pretty traumatic over a period of time, depending on where you're working at, what company you're with, and what you have to endure. But everybody always, envies a pipeliner, being a rig welder, and I'm telling you, you take some stuff with
I envy you getting on a helicopter and going out to a rig and just having good meals all 2 weeks when you're out there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why you get paid what you get paid, and I commend you for that.
We're talking about, kind of the adrenaline rush, and traveling and kind of roping this all back into that, that's what got me hooked in this. I remember times when I was 23, 24 years old, I had my hood pulled down, welding on the side of a piece of pipe. And you see that puddle suck back into that pipe, and you think for a split second, I'm about to kill everybody that was sitting at 150 feet of me and myself. And you start moving with it. You know what I mean? You're basically you're working with the metal the entire time, and you're recognizing these things. But it's that half second in your mind that, hey, I'm probably this could go south really quick, And people always ask me like, "Hey man, why don't you play golf?" And I'm like, dude, if my brain doesn't think it's about to die, I'm not stimulating my body. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what got me into what I'm doing today, But
I've
experienced enough tragedies and enough situations and enough anomalies that it makes me very efficient in my job of how to direct people, how to get out of those situations, how to avoid those situations, how to put in protocols and procedures to avoid that ever being a possibility or a situation for their company, and that's, I don't know.
Well, and is that your remote job now? So Dad mentioned, 2024, you move into a remote position as a consultant. And is that what your job is now? You're basically, I don't know. Tell me what you're doing now.
So I work for a utility solutions group, and we cast a very broad net. So I do get to make commissions, so I have some sales on the side of it there, but we also do compliance as well as outsourcing. Let's say you have you just fire up a company, right? You want to go do work for Atmos Energy, and you need to put on 20 crews and get them out there in the field. Basically, you come to us, we look at your projects, we'll figure out how much manpower you need, how to get those guys into compliance, get them the right OQs, operator qualifications to where they're certified and stamped, by Atmos to be able to perform that work, number one. Also, we'll get you the tooling that you need, get you rigged out on your trucks. We do a lot of truck kits. And then we also do a lot of field services work too. Like if there's stuff that's outside of your scope of work or your company's not certified to do, we can send in a team to execute that for you. So we do cover a lot of different aspects.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to utilize the information and the knowledge that I've gathered and the relationships that I've fostered, coming up through my previous years into where I am now is, man.
Well, it makes you ideal because you do like what I don't do it. I'm not the technical person. I do the business work, but I'm in clinical research, and that's what we do. We consult pharma and medical device companies to help them basically make money, right? Make their new drug, create their new device. So you're doing that. You're like, whatever they need you to do, you help those guys
Yep.
get that in place, which it's interesting because you go from this high adrenaline, as you mentioned, the job keeps your brain, your body going. And so maybe that's how, because the whole time you're talking about this, I'm like, well, how does he get obsessed with wakeboarding and trying to transition right? But like, I guess to the point where you're like, but would you say it's more of a need now because your job is not giving you that, where it's like, no, I got to fill that gap?
Kind of, I don't know. Yeah, to some extent, because it's crazy that you say that, Jamie. But yeah, whenever I first started, my career, I kind of stopped wakeboarding from the time I was about 19 or 20
Yeah.
to the time that I was about 27. You know what I mean? Like I had like a 7-year gap there in my wakeboarding and wake surfing and, anything that was extreme. And that's where I was getting my fix at.
Right.
And then, so fast forward a little bit out of welding, and then Co starts, my cousin Co Etzel, he starts a gas utilities company out in Lubbock, Texas. Partners in with Medina Utilities. They get this thing kicked up off the ground. I get a phone call, and they're like, hey, guys, come out here to Lubbock. We need some help. Jump on board with us. And so I go out there for about 4 or 5 years and kind of pilot their safety and compliance to program, because if anybody knows anything about natural gas and oil, safety and compliance is pretty much like your fall guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if anything goes wrong in the company, it's going to be in those two departments. And so I felt
Right.
pretty honored to get to oversee that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I put in procedures, I put in process, I put in protocol, and then I went ahead and got my master evaluator's license to where I could train guys to put out into the field. So that way I knew in my mind, these guys that we're sending out, we're not going to have any
Are good.
issues with. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I got to start training a lot of his employees that were shifting out into the field. And over a period of time, we got it going. I mean, hell, we went from 30 employees to like 120 over the period of 2 years. You know what I mean? And then me and Bailey had conceived a child, and here I am working in Lubbock, Texas, out of Texas Tech. I just got my pilot's license. I was going to school out there. I was working. You know what I mean? Living a single man's life. And me and Bailey just conceived a child back here in East Texas, and so I called Co and I was like, "Hey, man." Something's got to give. Either option A, I'm going to have to go to work remote with you, or I'm going to have to find something closer to East Texas, because I'll be damned if I'm not a part of this child's life,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And nobody really took me seriously. They were like, oh, yeah, all right, Jake. Yeah, like, okay, cool. And one of the guys that I sit on TGA with, Texas Gas Association, board of directors, Alan Bean, good friend of mine, reaches out to me probably like 2 weeks after me and Co had this conversation. He's like, hey, got an open position over here in Dallas, Texas. You don't know anybody that'd be interested in it, do you? And I was like,
I would. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So shortly after that, I relocated back to East Texas. I'm currently living in Sulphur Springs and working remote, as you can tell from my home office here. And with that, I don't know. I had to find something to kind of fill that.
Well, yeah, because no offense, but compliance and safety is not an exciting job.
Well, I don't know. I really enjoyed the investigative work. Like we had we had a line strike, or we had a line rupture, or something like that. Like high pressure situations. I was your guy.
Yeah.
I go in there, take control of the situation in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
But
then you'd have to go write that procedure, section 8 point paragraph 10 point subparagraph 1 point B. You'd have to write all that out. So yeah.
But you're remote, working in Sulphur Springs, so the company's in Dallas, though.
Our headquarters is based out of Carrollton, Texas. We actually
Okay.
just got acquired by Core in Maine, which is a globally traded company. And so now I'm officially an employee of Core in Maine. But yes,
Okay.
GTW Utility Solutions Group. Core in Maine's kind of got this whole motto, you know, if you can't beat them, buy them. So we
Ah,
in July.
Well, that's good. That's good for the owners of your company. Yes.
yeah. So did you ever have interest in living in Dallas? Like I just because you grew up in East Texas, you grew up in Mount Vernon. I mean, I realize Sulphur Springs is bigger than Mount Vernon, but like, did you ever just say, I don't want to live in this small town? Like, did you ever think about moving to the suburbs of Dallas or no?
I did. I lived in the suburbs of Dallas whenever I was younger.
Oh, okay.
For like a little bit. Like I had a phase there.
Like a hot
But
minute.
yeah, it wasn't good for me or the community for me
Okay.
living in Dallas. So I'm going to stay out here in East Texas in the sticks where I belong.
Yeah.
You need to be able to like burn shit and stuff because you can't do that in the city. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
All right, so you take the remote job what 2024? So when do you and hence I'm going to psychoanalyze you and that you're looking for to fill the void of the adrenaline. So is that when you get back into the as Daddy, what did we call it? The extreme sports? I mean,
Yeah.
I do love that
extreme.
you I do love that you played football in high school cuz I'm sure you know the G's as well, but I remember uh
Yeah.
Clint and I used to, and Colin, we used to always talk about that. You know, they grew up in Mount Vernon, and it was actually Colin, sweet little Colin, and he was like, "Yeah, nobody, like, I'm not cool." And I was
Yeah.
like, how are you not cool?" Because I met that kid when I graduated from college, and I was 23, and he was 13. And I was like, dude, you're like the coolest 13-year-old I know. How are you not cool? And he was like, Jamie, if you don't play football in Texas, like, you're not cool. And I don't do that. I do extreme sports. You know, he
All
skateboarded, they
athletes, all
wakeboarded,
athletes.
and I was just like, Colin, dude, you have no idea. Like you're as cool as they come. And one day all these high school kids that think they're cool, I was like, there'll be nothing. You just wait. But that's like that was very much Texas and even more so East Texas mentality. Like they are all anyone cares about is football. And
Football
even
church.
though football and church, and then it's like here are these kids out here doing like incredible things and nobody. And that's I think where our love for the water grew is just if I'm going to psychoanalyze my father is being someone that was in a position that could pull a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 16-year-old kid behind a boat whose parents didn't have one, couldn't afford it. You know, dad was always like, anybody that wants a pool, you know, any kid that wants a pool, because, you know, not everybody could have that. Not everyone had those opportunities because it is expensive. And I just know that is what tied us to so many people out in Mount Vernon was our lake life and that culture. And um I loved that. I loved being around those younger, you know, I was right out of college, and some of that came from, you know, my sister and I didn't live together our entire life. So when I moved to Dallas and I had that, we just wanted to be together all the time. Like it didn't matter that she was 13 and I was 23. I just wanted to be with her, and that transition to our life became the lake, you know, and yeah, it's just it's such a cool culture, and I just love that. I'm kind of rambling, but I think Dad knows what I'm trying to say. But
I mean,
Funny. That is funny.
yeah. All right. Sorry, I asked a question like 10 minutes ago, and I'm gonna
Yep.
let you answer it
Yep.
now. So
Yep.
you take the desk job because you're obviously that's what you. So then, Dad, your question was, how does he get back into wakeboarding? Right? Can I get back to your outline? Is that what is next up on the owl generated
I kind
outline?
of lost my spot here.
That's all right.
Derailed
That's all
me a
right.
little bit.
That's what I do.
So let's talk about going out and what gave you the opportunity to take that trip west and spend time out there in the snow. Was it between jobs, maybe,
No,
or no?
so that was actually right. Like I said, 2024 in July, I landed my position as a working for EGW Utility
Hmm.
Solutions Group, right?
Yep.
And I go in. I've known Alan for a little bit, and he's putting together like this team of elite guys that in the background, and he's telling me about it. You know, he's like, I'm picking this guy and this guy. He starts putting it together, and I'm like, man, like, whoa, we got a heck of a team, you know? And so he's like, well, let's go do something together, you know? Like, let's
Hmm.
get out and go do something. Like, let's build some
Yep.
camaraderie. And I'm like, all right,
Yes.
cool. So
Build it. Yeah.
my birthday was rolling around in February. Colorado just got dumped on, like, with 14 inches of snow. And he's like, let's go to Breck. And I'm like, perfect idea. Let's do it. So we take off probably like 4 or 5 days, shoot up there for my birthday. And it's me, Alan Bean, my national manager, and Jesse Farmer, one of my really good friends and associates, which just got promoted to a contractor national account manager. But that's nonetheless, we go out there and we start riding, and like we're getting on the mountain and stuff. And I'm thinking like these guys are probably going to want to hit the bunny slope. You know, I'm a park rat. I'm going to go hit some rails and some boxes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll catch you at the bottom of the slope after this. You know, but they're like, no, man, let's take Imperial on up. And I'm like, all right, cool. So we all load up on Imperial, and we go to the highest peak in Colorado, which is Peak 8 on Breck. And we jump off the Imperial, and we start hitting the bowls on the way down. And these guys are just blowing by me, and I'm like, all right, sweet. So like I just started talking with them, you know, and like we're sitting there just shredding, coming all down the mountain. And it was like in that moment that it really clicked. I'm like, man, I'm finally around people that get it. Like they get me. You know what I mean? Like the
Mm-hmm.
former jobs that I would work, I would take, you know, a 3 or 4 day vacation so I could go snowboarding or so I could go surf or so I could go wakeboard for a few days. And I come back and people like just dog me about it. They would say, you know, why would you go up to the mountain and freeze for 3 days? You know what I mean? Like what
Yeah.
do you want to do? Like they just like didn't
Didn't get
understand.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't understand the passion there or like being in nature, you know, and it
Hmm.
just really bothered me. And then whenever I came into that atmosphere and around that group of guys, I just felt like I was home, you know. Like
Mm-hmm.
finally I'm around a group of people that get me. And that really clicked, you know. And then we got down, we rode 3 or 4 days there, and I get a phone call or I get a Snapchat from one of my good high school buddies from 10, 12 years ago, and it's Christian Monduhana from out of Pittsburgh, Texas, and he's like, "Hey man, I heard you're here in Colorado," and I'm like, "Yeah, we're literally at T-Bar in Breck right now, like having a couple drinks." He's like, "Man, I'm gonna pull up," and I'm like, "You're here?" Like, what's up? So here comes
How
Christian.
long was it since you had seen him? In your storyline, I mean, it'd been a while, is what I'm gathering.
Man, probably since my junior year in high school.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wow.
Junior
Wow.
year in high
Yeah.
school. Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
had been a hot minute since I'd seen Christian, you
Yeah.
know? And what was real crazy about him, he was kind of going through the same changes in his life and his industry. He's a certified mechanical engineer that was designing trailers for a big trailer company out here in East Texas. And he
Yeah.
quit his job, went and bought a Sony A7 camera and moved to Colorado and started doing photography on the mountain
Oh,
just
wow.
on a whim. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just got tired of corporate bullshit. Like I just got
Yeah.
fed up with it. Like I want to be me. I want to live my life. I want to be who I want to be. And like this is where I'm happy at. This is what I'm going to do. And I was like, more power to you, brother. Like I
Yeah.
mean, you can't
That's
be mad at
amazing.
somebody for chasing their dream. You know, and he's
No.
Yeah.
now than I've ever seen him in his entire life. You know.
And he's living still in the Pittsburgh area or the East Texas
No, he
area?
lives in Summit County, Colorado, which is
Okay.
Dillon, Silverthorne, Breck, yeah,
So
Vale.
he was
Mm-hmm.
there when he just saw that you were up there. He's been there for a while then, huh?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
got there about 6 months prior to us going on that trip, which was pretty
Gotcha.
ironic.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
So we all kind of met up there on the mountain, and we're riding together, having a good time. And then we get back into the warming room later on. We're having a couple beers, and me and Christian are, just kind of chopping it up back and forth. He's like, "Man, are you still competing any like you were in high school, or is like that's just like what's going on?" I'm like, "I don't know, what's up?" He goes, "Well, there's a big rail jam going on in Silverthorne next weekend. Like, you should get in on this. Like, you're good enough. Like, let's jump on this. Like, let me get some shots. And I was like, all right, cool. So turned around and registered me and him for the rail jam, and flew back home that following Monday. And then, like I said, about a week later, I'm jumping on a plane, flying back up to Colorado. I mean, now I got a homeboy that lives in Denver, Colorado, or that lives in Colorado. He's got all the equipment in the world. He's got 2 or 3 ski passes. Like, I mean, it's a cheap trip at this point. It's only $120.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, we start going to all these rail jams and start networking with different riders and start trying to, like, not really treat it like a business, but be very exploratory with our intentions. You know what I mean? Like, kind of figure out who's who, like, who's hosting these events. How does this even come together? Like, who do we have to get involved? Is it sports commission? Is it national? Just trying to figure out the logistics.
Like, what's the business? You're trying to figure out the business. Yeah.
Because we both loved it. Like, we were very enthusiastic about it. And so, like, we chased this snowboarding circuit all the way through the mountain and through the season. And then the snow started to melt off, you know. We're like, dang, this is all coming to a close, you know. We don't want it to end. Like, what are we going to do next, you know? So, Christian, you know.
Snowmobile racing on the grass. That's what you got to do in the spring. That's right.
Let's do some extreme frisbee golf or something.
That's funny.
No, I've experienced snowmobile on the grass, and that's great. So there you go. I mean,
I'll have to try that one.
Yeah.
We came back together. We sat down in Pittsburgh. This right here was like middle March, and I had just received an invite from some good friends of ours that I had surfed with in the past. They just bought a brand new Nautique $60,000 custom made champagne boat, and they're like, "Hey, we're going down to LBJ. We're gonna do some surfing. We know you like to surf. Would you like to come with us?" And me and Christian were like, "No brainer. Yeah, we'll be there."
Yeah.
So, we load up, we go down there, got some really good shots, got to meet Next Level Marine. I don't know if y'all know those guys.
I do.
Very well known marina. Hung out with them out at the sandbar, did some riding, and then next thing you know, Christian just taking shots. They put us up in a really nice Airbnb. It was a great weekend. We get back home, and Christian's like running through the shots, and there happened to be a shot of me like surfing. And one of the boys on the back of the boat had thrown me a Twisted Tea, and I'm like catching the Twisted Tea, and you can see the can perfectly, and I'm like, just like catching it. Well, he put that on that post, and we get back home like, oh man, that's a cool picture. Nobody ever paid much attention to it.
Yeah.
And like 3 or 4 days later, I get like a message from Twisted Tea on Instagram, and
that's
like,
crazy.
"Hey, we really love these shots. Like, can we have these?" And I'm like, whoa!
Time out. Wait a second.
What just happened?
Yeah. Because you're like, yes, but then you're like, wait a second. I really need to think this through because I need to do this right. Right? That's what I've been doing. Like, yeah.
And that was kind of like the little light that went off in our
head.
Man, like, we were looking for something to transition off the slopes onto water, and we just found it. Like, we gotta foster this. We gotta take care of it. Like, we gotta keep this thing going. You know.
Yeah.
So we reached back out to them, sent them a few shots. They ended up premiering us on Twisted Tea Tuesday.
Nice.
Did all kinds of like notoriety through social media, which we thought was super cool. You know. And then that just kind of took off. We started having other companies look at us, and then next thing you know, me and Christian were like, well, "Dude, we need a team. Like, we need to get a group of riders together," and like it clicks in my head. I'm like, dude, Kevin and Jamie did this not too long ago. Like, Lakeside Mafia. Like, we need to recreate that. We had the idea of what y'all did in mind, but with no foreground. And like, hindsight's 2020, Kevin. I wish I would have called you on that day and said, "Hey, Kevin, do I got a business plan for you?" But I mean, we didn't know what we were getting into. We didn't know what we needed, you know. And then we started running into a lot of challenges after that, it was like we put the cart behind the horses, you know what I mean? So we ran into some difficulties there, but I mean, you kind of got to love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah, you do. It takes a little stumbling and hitting a couple hurdles, and then it does. So that's great. So on the onto that, I mean, just let's walk through after that. I mean, it's like the world's just started popping, and you got back into more serious riding and developing, and kind of getting your practice game going on, and just a little bit of time devoted to it. I'm sure with being at home and not on the road, and just had huge success thereafter. So, and I what looked like success, as I saw in your bio feed or your questionnaire coming back to us on the take ahead of the pod, um, and having done that with Kelsey for many years of just constant practice, constant development, constant training, to qualify for nationals and then go to nationals and just kind of shitty weather and rain and bad winds, and she she just does not make a good run and works terribly hard the next year, qualifies ready to go, and a week or 2 weeks, I forget what it was, ends up planting and breaking breaking a bone in her foot. So yeah, Kelsey went through all that frustration, which was frustrating on all of us, and just like you said, traveling around, trying to get there. Definite fun and definite passion that just as from my perspective of watching these kids grow up on the water and being a part of them growing up was just huge. And then but there's a lot of difficulty and a lot of dissatisfaction that comes with that. Now, what interested me most when you approached me at the marina about this deal, as I had talked to Sasser, in buying my current Mastercraft boat multiple times, of just wanting to know why the grassroots level of writing had fallen off and disappeared. And what was a huge following back in that era of the 2000 era, I guess, for lack of a better word or time frame,
Yeah.
2000, 2010, where Orlando and that wakeboard association, wakeboarding magazine, all of that, just that formation of just the pro circuit and all that stuff was just major. And even today, it's not that you don't have a lot of reels and a lot of footage of professional riders that are still riding professionally. It just doesn't have the same media attention that was going on back then.
Yeah.
So I was just excited to hear what your dream was and what you were trying to do, and better yet, bringing it back to Sandlin or
And
wherever they'd let you go. And you made that happen this year. So let's talk
yeah,
about that.
yeah, okay, all right, cool. Thank you. So we, by the way, really cool story about Kelsey. I have a really neat story about nationals and kind of some milestones and like some challenges and stuff that I faced that were very similar to that. But fast forward, we get done with Dubai, come home, and having an international championship under our belt. Everybody's asking you, like, what's the next move? What do you want to do? Like, where do you
Mm-hmm.
want to go with this? And it has been my childhood dream since 2008, 2009 to have a wakeboarding event facilitated on Bob Sandlin or Cypress. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted a grassroots event on Sandlin or Cypress. Now, forsaken, our event's not going to be grassroots. It is going to be sanctioned through the WWA, which kind of makes it a little bit cool too.
Yep.
They're going to give us our own stop on the Texas Series tour now. So we have
How
Wakeboard
did that
Canada.
happen? How did they make that happen?
Go to Dubai when you when you champions. I guess I don't know.
How many beers did that cost you?
I've stopped counting a long time ago, Kevin. We come home and they're like, yeah, here's what needs to happen. This is how it has to take place. So we found a facilitator or a host, which is going to be Barefoot Bay Marina.
Yeah.
There on Bob Sandlin. Al Prager, good friend of ours. He's also another one of our sponsors. I kind of ran the idea by him, and I'm like, look, WWA is looking at giving us our own stop on the Texas Series. I worked I would love to have it here. You know, you have the perfect cove, you have the facility, you have the infrastructure, you have campgrounds. We have the place to hold the people. Let's do it. You know, and he has a couple girls, younger girls that are, you know, first kind of getting into surfing and whatnot. And he's like, man, that's a great idea. Let's do this. So we went, I guess it's been 2 weeks ago now, in front of the Water District Board of Directors. There in Titus County, and we got a verbal approval for our event. So now that we've secured that, we're working on management tiers with the WWA, you know, kind of where everybody's going to fall at on there. But registration will be available through the Rideline app, which is facilitated by the WWA as well. We are looking at trying to keep this grassroots, Kevin. So what I plan on doing is having the WWA waive any membership fees. So you don't have to be a pro rider. You don't have to be an amateur rider on the circuit. It's a come as you are. Anybody can ride, pay the entry fee, and you're in there. But we had to work with insurances and stuff like that to make that, you know, deal. But we wanted a grassroots event, and this is the closest thing that we can get to a grassroots event through the WWA sanctioning it. But it's going to be a for riders by riders, and I plan on keeping all the pot money for the riders in each division. So,
Gotcha.
If you have 5 riders in your division, that's what we're going to be paying out. We're looking at different avenues to recoup our costs, so that way we're not taking any money out of the rider's pocket, and that's a big thing for me.
Yeah. When is this going to take place? I'm curious, like when it's going down.
24th and 25th
of 2026.
Yes.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. That's awesome. So April of 2026, and at Bob Sandlin Lake, they're in
Barefoot Bay. Right.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
I mean,
yeah. No, like
that's the best cove of water you got out
awesome.
there, dude. You know,
that's
the best cove you need to be in. Sure. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And so your role in that, are you going to ride, or are you just going to have on the leadership hat and making sure it all goes down smoothly?
That's the thing. Since it's kind of our event, it's, you know, we're the ones that are fostering this event. I don't feel that it would be appropriate that I rode in it. I would feel really bad if I rode in it and smoked all my friends.
Yeah.
I'm joking. No, I doubt I'll ride in this event, which is going to suck that I'm going to miss out on Texas Series for 2026, but I won it this year, so I'm really not upset about it. But I'm just stoked that we got it here.
That you get to do it, yeah. Well, you can always go out there and just do like a special guest appearance and ride and like do a pass, you know, and I think that's cool. That's what I would do.
You need to.
I wouldn't not ride.
You need to create a double up competition. That way everybody can compete.
Ooh, yeah, double up competition in probably 10 years.
Yeah,
all them boys. That used to be the thing, you know.
You could do a sidebar comp too, where you do a twisted T catch, where you're like, you go out there and you show them how to do it. So then you bring the sponsorship back, and it's like, who can catch the twisted T? You know, you do a whole thing with this. Yeah, man, we can help you market the shit out of this.
There's all kinds of stuff.
Lots of opportunities.
I think it would be fair. I think the fact that number one, it is a grassroots event, and number two, just the amount of lake activity going on between the two lakes, and better yet, Dallas is close enough to get out there and have riders that, you know, want to partake, and cash is king. So there was nothing better in those years of getting involved in this other than going on a weekend competition. That was the best thing ever. So.
Well, yeah, no, for sure. And we are going to deal with kind of a double-edged sword on this, though, Kevin, having it as a grassroots event and having it as a stop on the series, because it is considered a point chase event for your higher advanced riders. But in my mind, that's going to bring in a lot of high-end riders to our local marina, number one, but also get those riders in front of kids that are here local and give them somebody to look up to. Give them somebody on social media that's not, you know what I mean? Give them appropriate role models. Like, give them somebody to, you know,
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, and at the end of
Well,
the
and
day, it's like everybody wants to see. It's cool to watch the kids riding and who are working on their level. That's super cool. But like at the end of the day, everybody wants to see the good guys. Like that's what you pay
yeah,
for. Yeah. Well,
and
I
the
think it's cool.
The WWA does a really good job of facilitating that same environment. Regionals this year was at Lake of the Ozarks, and it was a Malibu event. They called it the Malibu Experience or the Rider Experience, but that was
Hmm.
our regionals for WWA.
hmm
And whenever you get up there, you got all the souped up Malibu trucks with the lift kits and the boats, and then all the pro riders hop out. You know what I mean? And it gives the kids an opportunity to meet all those guys. And I want to
yeah,
bring the same environment into East Texas. You know what I mean? Like
sure,
there's a lot of
Yeah.
kids that ride, but they don't know like who do they watch on YouTube? Like who do they need to watch streaming? Like who do they look up to? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're just kind of recreating that here in East Texas, like you did. So 10 years ago,
Yeah.
that
well, yeah,
was huge. I mean, there was
yeah.
I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I wouldn't have these ambitions if it wasn't for the foreground that y'all set. That y'all cultivated there in East Texas. Like,
Well, thank you. Yeah, I
that's
hear you on that. It's funny how these kids don't have that out. I mean, yeah, YouTube is one thing. When those writers were featured on, just on ESPN, or they would always do the weight games and things like that, and you'd see them live on TV. That's a huge step up. Obviously, YouTube is a great way for
Oh
anything
yeah.
to get brought forward, but
Yeah.
it is a different time, different era, and I'm sure bigger money. So.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure we're giving the tournament its proper due. So, Jake, for those that are interested in participating, learning more about it, where can they check out the information for the upcoming tournament there in April? Because it'll be here before we know it.
yeah. Yeah. They can check out my social media pages. We'll be posting updates as we get closer to the event. We are still in the process of sanctioning right now. Like I said, we just got approvals from the water district, but all that information as far as registration, scheduling, divisions, when the heats will be, posted and all that stuff will be in the Rideline app that is through the WWA. If you go to your app store, it's
It's there.
iOS, or it's there. Just type in Rideline, and you'll be able to download it. And then whenever the event is fully sanctioned and we have it brought into the schedule, you'll be able to register there probably about 2 months in advance of
Okay.
the actual event. So
Very
Yeah,
cool.
and
I would be looking for it probably. I would say early February,
cool.
mid-February, somewhere in there.
Yeah, well, we'll make sure we share it on our socials as well, and we'll tag you and everything. So that's great. We can
Awesome, for sure.
help
Yeah.
make that connection. I am so excited for you because as much as you say, that what we did out there as a family, but we never got a wakeboarding tournament out to East Texas. So
Oh man,
props
I
to
know. We
you.
tried. We
Props to you,
talked it
dude.
up. Yep.
Yeah, it's because again, it's like I get it. It's close to Dallas, but it's just far enough to get people there. It's a challenge. So hopefully we'll have good representation and hopefully maybe Dad and I can make it out there in April
That's where
Oh,
I was
I'll
going
be
to
to
say.
there.
see that.
I'll fly y'all
I'll
out
be
here.
there.
Well, Kevo's coming. He is not
Yep.
missing
I'm
that.
not. I'm not going to miss this. This is something
I'll,
I've dreamed of for a long, long time as well.
well, if y'all are for sure coming, I'll save you a Cabana VIP booth with y'all's name on it. Y'all can set it to y'all's podcast, and y'all can do rider interviews.
Yeah. Well, hell, we can do writer interviews and live broadcast.
There you go.
Awesome. That'd be
And
awesome.
Dad'll secure us a spot at the local RV park. Says he knows it well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. We lost our residences there, so we'll have to find some accommodations, Pops. But yeah.
Come on.
Well,
Yeah.
in RV, we can bring the bus.
We can bring the
That's what
bus.
we'll travel in.
Well, I mean, just to kind of wrap this up, Dad, if you're ready, but it's so great to finally, I think the last time I saw you, you probably were like 10 years old. So
Yeah.
it's cool to see you as a grown adult and hear again, your story is really cool, man. And I'm impressed by you for sure. And just your work ethic and what you're trying to do and keep yourself engaged in your own life and energized. Like that's a huge thing because it's hard to do. You got you have a kid now. You said you were having a baby.
Yeah,
Like
I do. I have a son, Bowen Cash. He
nice.
is, he'll be 15 months rolling into December here, so we're really excited about that. it's been a long road, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is the adventure, dude, because he will soon. Your life will become his life, and it's a beautiful thing, but it changes for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you're ready.
And
You're ready. There
for
you go.
all those people that tell you, like, isn't he too young? Because people said that with my son and ice skating. They're never too young. If he wants to be on the water, you put him on the water.
I was in the lake when he was 8 months old. So
Yeah.
he's been baptized.
You're never too young to start something, but that's cool. I hope you enjoy that. And very cool name, by the way, Bowman Cash. I dig that.
Yeah, it is good. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of the young kid that I see riding on reels all the time. I don't know, he's probably about 8 years old, if that. And I mean, that kid is killing it.
You got to start them young when they're not afraid. You know, it's like that point before they get scared. You got to get them in early, and then you're good. You know.
I have to say that the Instagram and the Facebook and the reels are really bringing anybody and everybody back in the foreplay. So I think this is just opportune for you guys to kind of just, because I didn't even know that these tournaments were still going on. I mentioned that to Brian the other day. I said, where is the WWA? What's going on? And when you started chirping about it, I said, well, there they are. They are around. They're still happening. It's just there's not enough shouting out about it, because
not enough attention.
But that's kind of the way it always was. You know, those that are in the know are in the know, and those that, you know, most kids today wouldn't even know what wakeboarding or wake surfing even is unless you're on a lake. So
yeah, I mean, it's a community. It's a sport that you have to have most people. You have to have money to do it. As we talked about before we hit record, you know, the cost of a boat, the cost to get out to do it. It's not easy. You know, I mean, I laugh about everyone making comments about what we pay to play hockey. Like, what do you think these kids have to wakeboard? You know, you got to have a wake boat. You know what a wake boat costs these days? You know, or you got to be able to put gas in the boat, and gas isn't cheap anymore. So it's a sport that, unfortunately, I think to get in it, you either have to have the opportunity or you have to have the money. So and to Jake's point, the connections, constantly working those connections, right? Who can give me a pull? Who can give me a pull?
Gas was never cheap at 8 gallons an hour burn. I mean, it's always been expensive.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's always been expensive. Yeah. It's never not been an issue. Yeah.
My helicopter got better burn rate than a damn boat does.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, it's been fun and lighthearted and all good, and we will be there. I will. I'm sure I can talk Jamie into it. So
come on, Jamie.
I
better to do.
I will have nothing else to do. No, actually, April's a good time for me. I'll be out of hockey and looking for something to do in April. So I'll be good to go, man.
Texas, Jamie.
Come back to Texas. You know, it's just not the same since you've been away. I can be there.
Just drive down to Nashville or fly in, and then we'll get in the bus and go.
All right, well, that's what we'll do. I like that idea because I want to ride in the bus. Actually, I don't want to drive the bus, but always.
Hey.
All right, kids. Well, Jake, thanks for being on, dude. We appreciate it. And yeah, good luck as you plan this thing in April. Make it happen, dude. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Follow along with us because we're gonna go international next year. So we're looking at competing in Japan and trying to grab Crystal there, as well as Madrid over in Spain.
Oh, very cool.
We're going back to Dubai as well. But Worlds is actually going to be hosted in Georgia this year. So we'll have it in the States. If you're
awesome
and we make it.
That's only a couple hours away from me right now.
All right, kids. All
right. Take care.
Y'all have a good night.
Thanks,
when I get back in town, I'll look you up. I'll call you.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Jen.
All right.
Yeah, bye, Jake. Thank you for tuning in today. With so many podcasts out there, we are grateful you chose to spend your time with us.
And we'd love to hear from you. So send us your questions, comments, and feedback to info@twoclicksinapod.com, and we might feature your message in a future episode.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social and head over to our YouTube channel where you can watch the full episode live and in living color. You can find us at 2 Clicks in a Pod. That's 2, as in the number, clicks in a pod.
Well, James, Until next time, love you.
Love you too, Daddy.